A lonely rancher knocked and said, "I was told you need a rancher." But the widow saw his daughter. The land was bare as bone. A rusted fence line ran along the dirt road like a forgotten scar, the wood grey from too many winters. Wind dragged its fingers across yellow grass that bent but did not break. A chimney in the distance puffed a thread of smoke into a pale sky, barely visible against the rising sun. Somewhere, a crow called. One note, long and lonely. A truck pulled up slow on that dirt road. Dust followed it like a ghost. The engine shut off. Silence returned. He stepped out. Tall, weathered, boots worn down at the heel. His jacket was stitched at the elbow, hat pulled low. Hands rough enough to carry calves, bury fence posts, or fight off hunger with grit. The kind of man the world didn't make anymore, or didn't want. He walked up the path toward the porch. Wooden steps groaned beneath his weight. His knuckles hovered over the door, then knocked, once, twice, slow. It opened. She was young to be a widow, pale eyes, hair tied back with no care for softness. The apron at her waist was stained from feed and flour. Her posture was tired but not weak. She didn't speak. "I was told you need a rancher," he said, voice like dry earth. She looked at him, then past him. Behind the truck, a girl had slipped out, maybe 9 or 10. She wore a flannel shirt, 3 sizes too big, sleeves covering her hands. Her hair was uneven. She stood barefoot on gravel and didn't flinch. The widow's face changed, not in shock, not in anger, but something moved behind her eyes, recognition, or warning. She didn't ask who the girl was. She only said, "Come in, both of you." And as the rancher stepped inside, dust still clinging to his boots, the widow's gaze lingered on the girl, the way she stood too still, the way she didn't look up. The door shut behind them, and silence pressed, its ear to the wood. The kitchen smelled faintly of wood smoke and something baking too long. The girl stood near the door, not moving. She didn't take off her coat, didn't ask for food, just stood, like a tree grown in the wrong soil. The widow poured coffee into a chipped mug, set it on the table, didn't offer it to him, just left it there, steaming between them. "She yours?" she asked. The rancher didn't answer right away. He took off his hat, set it gently down, looked toward the girl. "No," he said finally. "Not really." The girl turned her face slightly, enough for the widow to notice the bruise, not fresh, yellow at the edges. It ran down her jawline like something someone meant to hide. The widow's hands paused, then kept moving. She stirred something in a pot without looking up. "Was told you were short a hand," he said, voice low. "I work quiet. Won't take much. She don't eat much either." Still, the girl said nothing. Eyes stayed on the floor, as if speech cost something she didn't own anymore. The widow's lips thinned. "This ain't a place for hiding," she said. "I ain't hiding," he murmured. "Just stopping." She looked at him then, sharply, like she'd heard that lie before, maybe even said it herself once. He looked away. The room pulsed with silence, and in it, he saw a flash. A snowstorm, a cabin door left open, and a girl, just like her, running barefoot in the dark. His own daughter. Years back, before things split open, before whiskey and fists and goodbye. He closed his eyes a moment too long. The widow noticed. The girl shifted her weight, just slightly, like her legs wanted to move but didn't remember how. "Name's Clara," he said quietly. "She don't speak much, don't trust much, but she listens." "Who hit her?" He looked up. "Her mom's new man." A pause. "Didn't sit right with me." The widow nodded once, not approval, just understanding. Like She knew how wrong could grow roots in silence. He stood, ready to leave. "We'll move on if it's trouble." But the widow turned to the girl. "There's chores to do if you're staying." The girl didn't respond, just stared at her shoes. "I'll show her the barn," the rancher said. The widow didn't nod, didn't speak, but she stepped aside. And as the door opened again, the cold came in, light and sharp. But the girl followed him out, and that was answer enough. The barn smelled of old hay, oil, and memories. Light filtered through gaps in the boards, cutting stripes across the dust. The girl ran her fingers along a saddle, worn and cracked, like it had seen better riders than it deserved. He watched her. She still hadn't spoken, but she followed instructions. Gathered eggs, brushed the mare gently, quiet hands, careful eyes. That night, over stew, she ate in small bites. The widow watched her, not asking questions. The rancher mended a gate after supper, like he already belonged. But peace doesn't last in places where ghosts still walk. The man came 2 days later. A red truck, loud engine, tires biting gravel. He didn't knock. The rancher opened the door before fists could. "You seen a girl?" the man asked, smile sharp. "Leather jacket, fresh haircut, eyes that looked through you like glass." "Can't say I have." The man leaned in. "Tall kid, brown hair, goes by Clara. Ran off with some old fool, said he was her daddy." "She's not here," the rancher said, voice dry. The man's eyes flicked toward the barn, then back. "Well, if you see her, let her know Mom's worried." He left a card. No name, just a number and a thumbprint of blood near the corner. The rancher burned it. Later, in the quiet, Clara stood at the window. "He's not my dad," she whispered, first words in days. "He hurt her, then me. She let him." The rancher's fists clenched, knuckles white. The widow stood in the hallway, arms crossed. "He'll be back," she said. "People like him don't scare easy. He won't touch her again." "You sure about that?" she asked. "Because I've seen men promise that and end up in the ground." He looked at Clara, the way she shrank when tires passed, the way her fingers trembled when thunder rolled. "I was no good at protecting mine," he said. "Not then. But I've got breath left to try now." The widow didn't argue. That night, they locked the doors, kept the lights low, moved Clara to the loft above the barn with a dog that didn't bark but bit hard. 3 days passed. Then someone cut the fence. The mare spooked. A rope left dangling. Bootprints in the dark. No sound. The rancher stayed up with his rifle. The girl didn't sleep. Neither did the past. Because something darker than one man was chasing them now. Not just fists, but the echo of being unwanted, unseen, disposable. And in the cold wind that blew through cracked walls, they all felt it closing in. Mornings came grey, dew thick on the grass, breath visible in the air. The rancher handed Clara a rifle one morning, wordlessly. It was older than her, wooden stock, worn smooth. He didn't ask if she'd ever used one. He just showed her how to hold it, how not to flinch, how to breathe slow before the pull. She nodded once, eyes steady. And when she fired, the tin can flew off the fence like a bird set free. No smile, but something loosened in her shoulders. Later, they chopped wood together. He swung the axe. She stacked the pieces, not crooked, not rushed. One evening, she cooked eggs while he cleaned tack. The fire between them popped and hissed, but neither spoke. The silence between them was no longer empty. It held something, trust maybe, or at least the early bones of it. The widow watched them from the porch, said little, but left extra food on Clara's plate, and stitched the hem of the girl's coat when it tore. One night, it rained, heavy, hard. Thunder rolled like old war drums, Clara curled up on the barn's loft floor, blanket wrapped tight, dog curled at her feet, the Rancy. Her sat nearby, lantern casting soft gold across the boards. After a while she whispered, "My real dad left when I was 4. He didn't answer, just listened. He didn't hit, he just disappeared, like I didn't matter." The rain filled the silence again. Then he said quietly, "Mine drank himself numb. Used to call me Mistake when he got mean. I was 11 the first time I ran away. 12 when I came back to bury my mama." Clara looked at him. Really looked. Not through fear this time, but something else. "I used to think maybe if I was quieter, smaller, people would stay," she said. He nodded. "I used to think if I worked hard enough, the noise in my chest would stop." Neither cried. But both had scars they didn't try to hide anymore. And when the lightning cracked and the barn shook, the dog lifted its head, alert. Clara reached out, rested her hand near the rancher's knee, not touching, just near. He placed his hand beside hers. Close enough for warmth, not close enough to break the moment. That night, they didn't speak again. They just listened to the storm and let it pass through them without running. They came at dusk. 3 trucks. 1 red, the same from before. 2 black, newer, clean windows. Dust rising behind them like smoke from a coming fire. The widow saw them first. She was gathering kindling near the shed. When she stood still, stiff and silent, the rancher knew. He called Clara in, quiet, calm. "Upstairs. Stay down. Don't run unless I tell you." She didn't ask questions. She just moved. He took the shotgun from behind the door, loaded it slow, hands steady, heart slower. The widow stood beside him, holding the iron poker like it weighed nothing. Men stepped out, 5 total, leather, badges, sunglasses, even in dying light. The one in the red truck smiled that same smile, the one that didn't reach the eyes. "You harboring a runaway?" one of the suited men asked, flashing a flimsy badge that stank more of power than law. "Child Services says a girl's been taken, abducted." The rancher stepped forward, boots crunching gravel. "She wasn't a Ken. She was left." "She belongs to her mother," the suited man snapped. "She belongs where she's safe," the rancher said. Red truck laughed. "You don't get to say what's safe. You're not blood." "Neither are you," the rancher said coldly. The air tightened. Men adjusted jackets. Hands drifted toward hips. Then, a voice. "Stop." Clara, standing in the doorway. Thin, barefoot. Voice small, but clear. "I don't want to go." The suited man stepped forward. "That's not your choice, sweetheart." The widow moved between them. "She's under this roof," she said. "That makes her mine. And I don't give children to men who smell like gasoline and whiskey." Guns came up. The rancher stepped forward, placing himself between Clara and the world. "You'll have to shoot through me," he said. Red truck chuckled, gladly. But then, a sharp whistle. From the hills, another truck appeared. Sheriff's colors, real ones. The widow's brother. He stepped out slow, shotgun in hand, badge glinting gold and real. "You boys want to try that again?" he asked. Red truck paled. Suited man cursed. The others hesitated. "You lied on that warrant," the sheriff growled, "and I got proof. You touch one child here, and I'll see every one of you rot behind steel." Silence cracked. Then, retreat. Trucks turned. Dust rose again, only this time. It moved away. The rancher sagged slightly, just once. Later, when no one was looking, Clara reached out and hugged him from behind. He froze. then placed one hand over hers. And for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel like he was made of rust and shame. He felt like something worth holding on to. The night fell like ash. No celebration followed. No cheers. Just the quiet creak of the porch boards as the rancher sat alone in the dark, shotgun resting against his knee, smoke from his coffee curling up into the cold air like ghosts leaving the lungs. So, Sheriff hadn't stayed long, just long enough to hand over a paper, real this time, granting temporary guardianship under emergency protection. No promises, but a start. Red truck didn't come back. Word was, he crossed county lines and kept going. Maybe the law would catch him. Maybe not. But that wasn't the kind of justice Clara needed. Theirs wasn't loud justice. It was survival. Clara sat on the edge of the loft, legs swinging over hay bales. She watched the stars like they were trying to speak. The dog slept beside her, chest rising in rhythm with the crickets. The widow fixed tea, no sugar, just hot water, herbs, and something steady in the way she stirred. No one said much, because what mattered had already been said, in silence, in standing still when others ran, in stepping forward when the girl didn't have the strength to. The rancher walked out into the dark, past the broken fence. He stopped where the tire tracks had turned back, stared at the crushed grass. He knelt there, not to pray, but to press his hand to the earth, to ground himself, to whisper a name no one heard. He took something from his pocket, a rusted silver locket, small, scratched. He hadn't looked at it in years. He buried it beneath the fence post. Then came back in. Clara had fallen asleep on the couch, curled into herself, jaw unclenched. A blanket covered her shoulders. He sat beside her, didn't touch, just stayed near. The widow glanced over once, nodded, then returned to her chair. Her eyes held the weight of someone who had lost, then rebuilt, brick by tired brick. Outside, the wind picked up. The barn groaned, but inside, all was still. No more trucks, no more fear, just two broken people learning how to stay. The fire crackled. Wood popped. The rancher leaned back and closed his eyes. Not to escape, but to rest. For the first time, in a long time, without guilt pressing against his ribs. And in that silence, where once there was running, there was only breath, only stillness, only home. Spring came quiet that year. The snow didn't melt all at once, just pulled back slow, like fingers releasing a wound. Grass pushed through dirt with the patience of things that had survived. Clara fed the chickens now, without being asked. She named one of them Molly. She painted its coop sky blue. The rancher didn't ask why. He just smiled, the corner of his mouth pulling like it hadn't in years. He built her a small desk in the loft, took apart old barnwood, and carved her name into the side. Not fancy, just clear. She traced it with her finger every morning before opening a book the widow gave her. She didn't talk much still, but when she did, her voice held shape. The widow taught her how to bake cornbread, stitch buttons, and steer a plough horse by sound alone. On Sundays they sat on the porch and let the sun find them. No words, just breath and sky, and something sacred in the stillness. The sheriff returned once, dropped off papers, smiled like someone who'd seen more hell than he let on. He called Clara by name. She didn't flinch. That night they had a quiet dinner, 3 plates, warm light. The dog beneath the table, snoring softly. Afterwards, Clara gave the rancher something, folded in half, small enough to fit in a shirt pocket. It was a drawing. A fence. A barn. A tiny figure with a lopsided hat, beside a girl holding a chicken. At the top, in blocky letters, she had written, "Home." He kept it in his wallet. Did they find peace? Not all at once. But they found rhythm, breath, a place where broken things didn't have to hide. And sometimes, when the wind came through the hills just right, the rancher would close his eyes and remember the knock at that door. How a girl stepped out of a truck and into the hollow place in his chest and filled it, like water fills a dry creek bed quietly and without asking permission. Some homes are not built with wood, but with the bravery of those who stay.